this one is really boy, this is a doozy. If you have not noticed, there are a group of journalists, particularly on Twitter, social media, right? And they have been heavily smearing Dr. West because he is running third party. We've seen Jacobin smear Dr. West and say he should run as a Democrat. We've seen the New York Times. We've seen CNN, all these different outlets smearing Dr. West. But now something else has happened. Now they're just outright lying with bold-faced lies. And we're going to debunk one of those today. There is a journalist by the name of Eric Levitz. Now, Eric writes for New York Magazine, and he wrote an article recently. So this was published. Let me go ahead and share this because we're going to debunk this today. This is where we're going to spend most of our time tonight, by the way, is on this story. He wrote this article July 12th. Listen to this. The case for Cornel West 2024 is extremely weak. Now, I want to show you something. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Actually, no, you can see it when I pull this up. Hold on. When I tell you a lot of times these liberals, the white moderate, have the same look, trust me, boo. Okay. So you see the picture of him here over to the right. There's the black rim glasses. I told you, him, Sam Cedar, Rachel Maddow. They all got the same look. Keith Olbermann. Trust me. Okay. So he goes on to say, Cornel West recently decided, actually, make this bigger. The text is really small. Okay, there we go. Cornel West recently decided that the best way for him to advance economic and social justice in the U.S. would be to mount a third-party presidential campaign that, if history is any guide, will disproportionately siphon votes from the Democratic nominee. Lie number one, that is actually false. These Democrats, especially these Democrat journalists, they continue to spread this lie. And let me explain to you why it's false. I talked about this on Rising as well. The voters who come out to vote third party, the people who voted for Jill Stein in 2016, the people who voted for Gary Johnson in 2016, those voters will not vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. This is where they get this wrong. If Jill Stein and Gary Johnson did not run, and there were no third-party candidates, those voters actually don't come out to vote for the Democrat or the Republican. Those voters actually stay home. And they continue to spread this lie. So we got to correct the first lie. Okay? Let's get through the first one. 2, for the people who always like to point back to Jill Stein, Hillary Clinton, Gary Johnson, Donald Trump. Even if all of Gary Johnson's votes went to Donald Trump, this is what they're claiming here, and all of Jill Stein's votes went to Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton still loses. Okay? So this doesn't make any sense. All you have to do is look at the data and it shows you that. Let's get back into the article. That was the first lie. Thereby marginally increasing the odds of a second Trump presidency. I would say that Joe Biden increased those odds himself by being a poor president and not fulfilling his campaign promises. Most people to the left of Mitch McConnell disagree with West's assessment. Look at the comparison, guys. To the left of Mitch McConnell. Why are you looking for people to the left of Mitch McConnell? Why is Mitch McConnell the bar? That's the bar? A right-wing bigot? That's the bar? Let's go on. Various liberals have rehearsed the case for supporting America's only political viable coalition against right-wing rule. Again, liberals. Oh my God. Many socialists, meanwhile, have insisted that the best way for the left to exert influence over presidential politics is to contest for power within the Democratic Party. That is also incorrect. They're not socialist. There's a difference between democratic socialist and socialist. They're not the same. Do you see how we're not even made it through halfway of the article yet? Let's go on. But agreement on these points is not unanimous on the left. Problem number 3. The Democratic Party is not the left. You see what they do here? That's not left. It's just the Democratic Party is still a center right-wing party. Let's continue. One recent poll of a hypothetical 2024 race found West drawing 4% support nationally, erasing Joe Biden's advantage over Trump in the process. No, because Donald Trump was already beating Joe Biden in the polls before Dr. West announced he was running. They don't tell you that part, as if people have short-term memories. I don't. I remember. Let's go on. Meanwhile, Lily Sanchez publishes a case for West's candidacy in the socialist journal Current Affairs this week. Given that the past 2 presidential elections were decided by tens of thousands of votes between a handful of key states, it seems worth engaging with the pro-West perspective, fringe though it may be. Highlight fringe. Using the same vocabulary as the Democratic Party. This is how you know that mainstream media is in bed with the Democratic Party, the liberal media. Okay? Because what is CNN telling you? What are DNC politicians telling you? They're using this word fringe, chaotic. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to how even some of the progressives, we call regressives now, even some of the progressives were saying these words. Pramila Jayapal, anything outside of the duopoly, fringe, chaotic. That is to give people the impression that what they're trying to do is bad, is harmful. But the word fringe to some younger voters may actually be cool. Younger people may see the word fringe and say, oh, so they're different. Awesome. That could actually work against the Democratic Party. Now, this is the piece that we are going to target. The rigging. Right about here. It is true that members of the DNC were biased in favor of Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. It does not follow that the reason Bernie Sanders won 1,000 fewer delegates and nearly 4 million fewer votes than Clinton was because Donna Brazile gave her campaign advance notice of some questions at a CNN town hall that very few voters watched. First of all, define few. How many is few? Second of all, the fact that you're even admitting to the fact that Donna Brazile did that, and you're not calling out the problem that shouldn't have happened in the first damn place, and the fact that there was bias, that in itself is an issue. Sanders did not lose the 2016 campaign because the Democratic Party candidates aren't accountable to the electorate, but because they are. Listen to this bullshit, okay? A majority of Democratic primary voters preferred Clinton. A majority of Democratic primary voters preferred Clinton. That is actually false. We went over this a couple of nights ago. We went over the polls between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. There's an article called "Why is Bernie Sanders Beating Hillary Clinton?" Look it up. And they show the charts. I'll see if I have time, I'll see if I can pull it back up. And it showed how Bernie was beating Hillary Clinton. So the problem is not only that the DNC rigged the primary, but that the DNC chose the losing candidate for the nominee. And I made this argument just a couple nights ago on my show. Those polls showed you at that point in time that Bernie Sanders was more favorable over Hillary Clinton. And the DNC, because they did not want Bernie Sanders, they did not want someone who wanted to fight for the people. I guess we see he ain't fighting for the people now. But at that point in time, that's what he was running on. They said, no, Hillary is the selected candidate. Remember, they can select the candidate. We're going to get into all of that in just a minute. They chose the losing candidate to be the nominee. I still say this again. Bernie Sanders could have beat Donald Trump in 2016. Let's go on. A majority of Democratic voters preferred Clinton. That was wrong. Whether out of a belief that she was more electable or more aligned with their ideological views or more well-known or personally appealing. I don't think anybody really agreed that she was appealing. That was one of her flaws. Hillary Clinton was not charismatic. She's not charming. She doesn't have that likability factor. That was part of the problem. The basis for asserting that Sanders was cheated out of the nomination in 2020 is even harder to comprehend. Vote tallying at the Iowa caucuses that year was dysfunctional and served to delay a declaration of the winner. But Pete Buttigieg announced that he had won. Let's continue. On the night of the vote, some Sanders supporters voiced the conspiratorial belief that the delay was intended to diminish media coverage of their candidate's triumph and sap his momentum heading into New Hampshire. In reality, however, it was Pete Buttigieg who won Iowa and whose campaign was therefore marginally undermined by the delayed results. No, because it was actually revealed later on that Bernie actually had the most votes. Like, I don't even know. It just, let's go on a little bit more, and then I'm going to show some receipts. It is true that Democratic leaders, including Barack Obama, encouraged the race's relative moderates to unite behind Biden after his victory in South Carolina so as to avoid splitting the anti-Bernie vote and delivering him the nomination. But there is nothing undemocratic about political figures endorsing their preferred candidates in an election. Endorsing a candidate and telling people to drop out are two different things. Let's go into another receipt. See, he already getting me upset. I'm already a little pissed. Little pissed because Nico, and I don't know if you've seen this, Nico House remembers this very well. Very, very well. Because Nico, hold on. Let me make sure this is, sometimes the Twitter videos just play on their own and it's kind of annoying when that happens. Okay, here we go. Because Nico House actually was the one who went to attorneys Jared Beck and Elizabeth Beck. I'm going to show that in just a second in reference to the DNC fraud lawsuit. Now, let's go ahead and get into this video because obviously Nico read this article as well, and he had some things to say, and he put it in video form. So let's go ahead and play this. This is hilarious.
In this article by Eric Levitz, written in New York Magazine, he argues that people are stupid for thinking that the Democratic primaries is rigged against leftist candidates. Now, why would anyone think that the Democratic primary is rigged? Oh, because here's the former DNC chair candidate, Tom Perez, admitting the Democratic primaries were rigged. And here's Donna Brazile, another former DNC chair, admitting that she shared debate questions with Hillary Clinton. And by the way, the only reason Donna Brazile became the DNC chair was because Debbie Wasserman Schultz got fired because she rigged the primaries.
But Eric, who wrote this article, expects us to just forget all of this, that all of these things happened. Let's continue. There's more.
And then there's former presidential candidate and Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren also saying that the Democratic primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders. And then there was that time during the DNC fraud lawsuit, which happened because the DNC rigged their primaries, that the DNC's own attorney argued during court that they can choose their own candidate and we can't do shit about it. And then there's this. Tom Perez and Bernie Sanders going on a tour together because the DNC was trying to apologize to Bernie Sanders and his supporters for cheating them during a primary. I'm going to say what they want. And I'm going to tell you that they're really upset that Cornel West is not tap dancing for the Democratic Party. It is instead choosing to call out the atrocities, the hypocrisy, and the failures of the party that is supposed to be for the people.
Telling it like it is. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? Now, it was like a month or two ago, actually might have been longer than that now, I interviewed Jared and Elizabeth Beck, who were the DNC fraud lawsuit lawyers. Now, a lot of people forgot about them, but I brought them back because I was starting to see people get excited and really pumped up and thinking that people like Marianne and RFK Jr. have a chance within the Democratic Party, which they do not. And I said, if there is a way for me to reach out to Jared and Elizabeth Beck to get them to come back on to come onto the show, because it was Nico who talked to them the first time, to get them to come onto the show, just to remind people that this is all rigged. So I did. So let me go ahead and share that. So this was 1 month ago. I didn't think it was that long ago. 1 month ago. Listen to this. This little snippet here. This is Jared Beck, and this is his wife, Elizabeth Beck. Listen to this.
I want to get the whole story out. So he came to our office, and we actually gave him a desk and a computer, and we're like, basically, it's sort of our perspective was.
They're talking about Nico, by the way, when Nico came to them.
The documents that had been dropped by Guccifer 2.0 and how we could, what they meant and how we could plead a legal theory on behalf of the hundreds and then thousands of people that were calling our office and emailing us saying, this is such BS, this rigging. Is there anything, that we can do? And by the way, this is even before the convention started. Okay, I want to make that very clear. I think it's important that people understand that we actually got the lawsuit off the ground, before, Philadelphia happened and the convention was formally given to Hillary Clinton. We had already had that lawsuit on file, and our aim was not to reverse the results or all these Trump lawsuits try to do, but we were trying to get the money back for the people that had contacted us because we saw this as a huge monetary fraud.
So with their lawsuit, they weren't even trying to get the results overturned. They were just trying to give people all those small dollar donations that went to Bernie Sanders from working class people. They were just trying to get those people to get their money back, because there were a lot of people who barely had $10, $5 to give, but gave it anyway because they believed in Bernie Sanders. Let's go on.
To the tune of $220 million that went to the Bernie Sanders campaign and then into the Democratic Party ecosystem. That was just, we had homeless people who were our clients, okay, that were reaching into their pockets. That's how awful this thing was, okay? And in retrospect, it was a very traumatic experience, I think, for a lot of people. It certainly, changed our lives. But I hope some lessons were learned from it, and I hope
don't donate.
Right, but I hope that the record that we created is of some use to people going forward, especially in these times, as you have candidates like Robert Kennedy and Marianne Wilson coming around with their hand out, wanting you to reach into your pocket as, inflation is on the rise and the economy is going into the shitter. They want you to send your money to their enterprises. And, my advice as, a fellow citizen and as a lawyer and as somebody who has litigated this issue extensively is, you can do what you want with your money, but just be aware that this process is 100% fake. don't get angry, and certainly don't call our office asking to file a lawsuit, because we're not doing anything close to that ever again.
So you can see there's some bitterness there. They were upset. If you haven't seen that interview, you have to watch the whole interview. There's some bitterness there. There's also hurt and pain, because they really did fight. They really did fight to make things right. Now, I'm going to come back to that video in just a second, because I want to show you what happened and what was said in the courtroom. So I got to put this back up, because people forget about this. I don't. And I think it's always good to make sure that you have this in your back pocket. This is a very important lesson here from the DNC attorney, Bruce Spiva. Bruce Spiva actually argued on the side of the DNC. Now, I don't know where Bruce is today. I tried to find contact info for him to bring him on and explain all this jazz a little bit more, but couldn't find Bruce. But this is what Bruce said during the case. I'm going to make it really big for the people in the back. There we go. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. DNC attorney Bruce Spiva. There is no such thing as a Democrat. The DNC just encourages people to vote for the Democratic Party. That's point number one. Point number two, no one has any right to an expectation of a fair election. Ding, 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 ding. Hello. This is the DNC's attorney. Let's go on. If the DNC wishes to select a candidate in the primaries instead of a free election process, that is their right. But according to hipster Eric, who wrote for the New Yorker, there's no rigging going on. The court said that the DNC does not have the right to give you a fair election. What does that tell you? Let's continue. Donating money to Bernie Sanders doesn't mean you thought that money was going to assist him to win the primary. You have no right to think the DNC was obligated to follow their own charter and internal policies about elections. And that was one of the things that Jared and Elizabeth Beck were arguing in court, is that, but the DNC's charter says this. So they were able to point to the charter as their resource and say, no, they cannot do this. They could not rig this. And this is the reason why, and pointed to the charter. But according to the court and what the judge determined is that they do not have to even follow their own charter. There's more. Discussion of and any disputes with the DNC do not belong in a transparent process in a court of law. The DNC is a private association. Look it up, guys. Look up DNC. It says corporation. It's corporate. It's a corporation. There's no party. This is just a corporation picking candidates. That's it. The DNC is a private association which should never be asked to engage in the discovery process or have to reveal any of its internal workings or strategies. They don't even have to talk about that. Should they decide to select a candidate rather than allow a fair election of a candidate. But according to hipster Eric, these things didn't happen. Some people forgot. I didn't forget. That is attorney Bruce Spiva. DNC is a corporation. I wish more Americans knew that. I think if more Americans knew that, they wouldn't be showing up to vote for them. If more Americans knew that this process is not transparent, that this process is not fair, and legally they don't have to be fair, I don't think a lot of Americans would participate. They don't want you to know about that. Just remember that, guys. Now let's go back to the video. There's another part I want to play here. Go in here. You put up I just want to speed up just a little bit. Okay, I went over the Bruce Spiva thing. And then after that. Does it go back that far, do you think? Oh, yeah. This part is important. This part about okay, here we go. To follow their own charter and internal policies about elections. And then this last piece here, discussion of and any disputes with the DNC do not belong in a transparent process in a court of law. The DNC is a private association which should never be asked to engage in the discovery process or have to reveal any of its internal workings or strategies should they decide to select a candidate rather than allow a fair election of a candidate. And the question that I have about this statement that the DNC is basically a private corporation, so to speak. Mm-hmm. How far does this go back? Listen to this. Does this go back all the way back to, since we mentioned RFK Jr., to when JFK ran for president, or when the original Bobby Kennedy ran for president? Does it go back that far, do you think? So I wrote a book about the lawsuit, and I attempted to sort of trace that question back through time. And in terms of the rigging that you see now, where, the DNC operates as a private entity, with no duty to the people. It purports to call its members, but then its lawyer gets up in court and says it has no members. But that you see that go back to the 60s. You guys heard that? It's in the book. He wrote a book called What Happened to Bernie Sanders. You can probably find it on Amazon or something like that. But What Happened to Bernie Sanders? You should read that book. Since the 60s, they have been selecting our leaders. This is not a new thing. After PACs came in, after super PACs came in, super PACs and PACs weren't always a part of the political process. Those things happen later on. You see what happens once they brought in the corporate money. All of a sudden, they're like, okay, we're going to pick the candidates now. And I believe I asked him about JFK. You see that that style of rigging going back to McGovern, the McGovern campaign in the 70s. It's institutional. It's not, 100% the same every primary system, because they're constantly tweaking the rules and the role of superdelegates and things like that. But I'd say by the time it gets to 2016, they have the process pretty airtight. And the real difference between our times and sort of back then is the role of the media. Okay, the media is like 100% propaganda apparatus for, the duopoly party system, and has no journalistic interest whatsoever. I mean, it's really devolved to that. I think it was a little bit different. I think it was more of an infiltration by intelligence agencies in the 60s and 70s, and less of like a wholesale capture and propaganda operation. Now it's a very aggressive propaganda operation that the media runs against its own population on behalf of the hand-selected puppets that it puts up there as
candidates. So
it is now a well-oiled machine that includes the intelligence agencies as well. Didn't I tell you all these people work together? The US government, excuse me, these intelligence agencies, the media is a big one, and the corporations, all these people work together. Why do you guys think they don't want to get corporate money out of electoral politics? Those politicians can still win on grassroots campaigns. We've seen politicians win on grassroots campaigns. They don't want to get the money out because they've sold their souls to these companies. The corporations control everything. Everything. Why do you think Barack Obama chose to bail out Wall Street instead of the American people that had their homes stolen from them? They are owned. The politicians that you see in DC, the ones that belong to the duopoly, these people are puppets. It's all been decided, selected, chosen. Now, I'm going to see if he holds up that book, because I thought he held up the book in the video. Was that earlier on? Oh, that was earlier on. I thought he held up that book at some point. Well, maybe I missed it. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, is that it? No, that's a comment. Shoot. Sorry. I'm usually more organized than this. I thought he held up. Anyway, the book is called What Happened to Bernie Sanders? There it is. Okay, here we go.
I was talking to someone and he was from Spain, and I said, what binds people from Spain? And he was kind of joking. He says, well, we take naps.
Yeah.
He was joking. But here's the thing.
She was really funny. She was a trip.
I was born in Korea. Koreans don't take naps. It's a cultural thing that binds them. And food is something that binds a lot of cultures.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I say that as a Korean because Koreans eat kimchi. And the Chinese make fun of Koreans.
Well,
they call them the kimchi eaters because China doesn't eat.
He had the book. I don't know what happened. Anyway, the book is right there. Oh, it keeps coming back. I don't know. It may be too. Anyway, the book is called What Happened to Bernie Sanders. You should read that book. This video, if you want to see the full video, it's called DNC Fraud Lawsuit Lawyers Speak Out. Why Marianne and RFK Jr. can't win. So that's the clip from the live stream. And that was posted 1 month ago. If you want to watch the full interview, it's an interesting conversation, you know, but again, obviously there was a lot of hurt there. Like you could tell if you, for those of you who saw the full interview, there was a lot of hurt because they really were out there trying to fight to help those people get their money back. And not even to overturn it, just to give people their money, you know? So it's a mess. It's a hot mess, you guys. But anyway, that journalist, Eric, is blatantly lying. I just showed you receipts. So he's an operative, okay? These people who work for these mainstream media, liberal outlets, their job is to keep you in the Democratic Party. They see the numbers are changing. They see more people are leaving the Democratic Party, particularly Black men are leaving the Democratic Party. Now tell me why that's happening. They're there to maintain the status quo. They don't want any type of disruption.